Welcome back to Kicking in the Second Half, KISH YZ. I'm back again. We got episode number 21. I'm going to call this Freeze Frame. I would like to just talk about the Western Conference as it stands right now, today, April 25th, 2021. Just a scenario as if everything with the standing today in the Western Conference stands the same. I'm your co-host, or your only host, D. I have no co-host. Well, I've got Groot again. Groot's a great co-host to have as a fill-in. Yeah, like I said, I'm kind of doing this solo, so we'll see how this goes. But I would also like to mention real quick, shout out to our new subscribers. Thanks, Dwayne, for subscribing. I already thought you were subscribed, but I did get the notification, so apparently you weren't, unless you stopped and came back. But either way, thanks for being in here and kicking in the second half. And shout out to PLG. He is a gamer, stands for Phantom Limb Gamer. He's a gamer, a Twitch streamer. He's also an left below knee amputee. And he wants everybody to know that this is Limb Loss Awareness Month, and I'm supporting that as well. So for every subscriber that we have by the end of this month, the month of April, and May 1st, I would like to donate $1 to the limbsforlife.org charity, the Limbs for Life Foundation on limbsforlife.org. If you would like to donate as well, you can go there. That's where I will be donating. But yeah, give us a like and a subscribe if you haven't, if you're watching our videos. And yeah, just watch some of our other content and see how you like the channel. You know, we do obviously the podcast here, and we also do shoes segments, PPFs, where we break down individual players, as well as debates. And you can find the audio-only versions of these podcasts on Anchor.fm, as well as Spotify. And if you're looking for us, as far as contacting us through social media, we are on Instagram and Twitter under KISHYZ, KISH_YZ. But yeah, back to business. Like I was saying, this is the as it stands, the standings of the Western Conference. So looking at the Western Conference here, just to give you a summary of where everything's at. Actually, looking at this, the Utah Jazz. Shout out to the Jazz fans. I know I'm repping Denver tonight, but shout out to the Jazz fans because they are already clinched as the first clinched playoff team in the entire league, which makes sense because they have the best record in the league, as has been the case for the majority of the season. So, yeah, let's start from there. So number one, the Utah Jazz with a record of 44-16. Number two, Phoenix Suns, 2 games behind. 3, Los Angeles Clippers, tied 2 games behind, but one more loss and one more win than the Phoenix Suns. 4, Denver Nuggets, 5 games behind the Jazz. 5, the Lakers still holding on to that 5th spot. 9 games behind the Utah Jazz. Dallas Mavericks have moved up. They're currently sitting in 6th place, even though they beat the Lakers last night on Saturday night. They are sitting at 10.5 games behind the Utah Jazz. 7th is the Portland Trail Blazers at 12 games back. 8, Grizzlies, 12.5 games back. 9, San Antonio Spurs, 13.5 games back. And 10, Golden State Warriors, 14 games back. And yeah, knowing what's happening this year with the playoffs, 1 through 6 is obviously, guaranteed to be in the playoffs. And 7 through 10 are going to be entering the playoff spot, where either 7 or 10 is guaranteed to make the playoffs because one of them needs to win the game. And then 9 and 10 has the chance of being in the spot of 8th place when it comes to the playoffs. And just honorable mention to the New Orleans Pelicans, who are 18 games behind the Utah Jazz, which actually puts them 4 games behind the Golden State Warriors. So looking at this, let's just go by Golden State. They're 30-30, so that is 60 games. So roughly, there's about 12 games, a dozen games left for most teams on average for the league. So not a whole lot of room to play with there, with them being 4 games behind the Golden State Warriors. But if something happens with injuries or slip-ups, then that's how they get in, and that's how they make that spot. But there's a little bit of gap there. So, like I said, I just touched on the standings, but, And just mentioning injuries, looking at the top four in the West, just Utah Jazz, Phoenix Suns, the Clippers, and the Nuggets. What stands out to me are the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns, they are holding on to the number 2 spot, which they've done that for most of the season, if not all the season. And they don't really have any injuries that I can think of offhand that's really affected their play. And if they stay healthy like they are, obviously number 2 right there, they should be able to hang on there with the Clippers catching up to them. That's kind of sneaky that the Clippers are there. Let me just give you a little insight there that the Clippers are actually on a 4-game win streak, which is pretty amazing seeing that Kawhi Leonard has missed some time due to injuries. But yeah, it brings me back to my point. I wanted to mention some injuries out there in the West. Kawhi Leonard, obviously. Donovan Mitchell is a big piece missing for the Utah Jazz. Jamal Murray, obviously with Denver, it looks like he's not playing the rest of the season. And a follow-up to that injury, Will Barton got hurt, where he's going to miss some time. I'm not sure of how long yet. I haven't looked to see if there was an update on that. So they're missing a key cog with their rotation, but a main piece with their starting lineup there. Obviously, the Lakers, with AD's return, he's trying to get acclimated back into their system. I think that'll take some time, which you don't want to rush that back. But obviously, LeBron is out as well. He's still missing some time. Goes back to what I was saying before in one of our other podcasts, that I see the Lakers kind of holding out LeBron until maybe a few games, like maybe when it gets to the last 10 or last 8 or so games, then he might try to get in there a couple times, maybe not the back-to-backs, but just to reacclimate his body to the pace of the league. But outside of that, as long as they can hold above 6 or higher, then there's no need to rush him back. Just stay out of the play-in tournament, save you some energy and an extra game or two there. And then also for the Dallas Mavericks, Porzingis there. So that's actually the top 6 right now as we look at that. The top 6, most of the teams outside of the Phoenix Suns have some type of detrimental player that's injury to a player that could really change the landscape for the rest of the way, not only the regular season, but going into the playoffs as far as how deep they make it. But just to mention as well, some teams that have some injury history with some of their players, we're looking at Nurkic with the Portland Trailblazers. He's a guy to keep an eye on because he has a history of injuries. Hopefully, he hangs in there and the Portland Trailblazers can be at full health entering this playoff season. And obviously Curry sitting at the 10th spot with the Golden State Warriors. We know he's had injuries in the past, but he has actually gotten pretty buff looking this season, where he's kind of added some muscle tone, in my opinion, which has helped his durability. But we know he had that injury not too long ago, a minor injury where he landed on his tailbone. I don't think that's anything really to worry about as far as re-aggravating unless he takes another hard fall. But yeah, just hopefully he stays healthy, and the Warriors would definitely have a great playoff outlook there as far as making it to the playoffs and making it past that play-in tournament. Since they're right there in 10th spot, who knows? They could even maybe climb up to the 6th spot with them being actually only 3.5 games behind the Dallas Mavericks. Like I said, it's a dozen games left, so it's going to be interesting to see the shakeup. But I want to stick with what we got today with this freeze frame. So let's look at the potential matchups. So, I'm going to start in the middle and work my way up to number 1. So in the middle round would be the Denver Nuggets sitting at number 4 versus the Lakers at number 5. So between Denver and the Lakers, that is an interesting matchup. I think it favors the Lakers if they're fully healthy, because obviously the Denver Nuggets are missing some pieces, and you need all the pieces you can have going into the playoffs. Jokic is going to be fine. He's going to do the stuff he normally does. Michael Porter Jr., he's definitely going to have to keep stepping it up. We're going to have to see him play better defense than he did last season's playoff rounds. So that's going to be a determining factor there. But we know the Lakers play hard defense, and that's how they win games, is based off their defense, turnovers, and fast break points. So that's going to, in my opinion, favor the Lakers. I think the Lakers are actually in a good spot. They're not really needing to move up much. Maybe take the 4th spot if they could. seeing that they're 4 games back. That's going to be kind of tough to do, but at this point it wouldn't matter even if you had the 4th spot. It'd just give you home court advantage for this round, and basically after that you won't have it. So yeah, that's a good look for the Lakers. If you're a Lakers fan, that's a good look. If you're a Denver fan, it's going to be tough. It doesn't really matter who you're playing in the first round. It's just because of the loss of Jamal Murray that making it through that is just going to be, it'd be a huge upset for whoever y'all are playing against. But yeah, that's just going to be tough. For the next round, or not the next round, but the next matchup in the first round, let's look at the Clippers versus the Dallas Mavericks. So that's number 3 with the Clippers and versus number 6 with the Dallas Mavericks. Clippers having home court there. And it looks like I wrote down in my notes just a mention of the Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks matched up last year in the bubble playoff, sorry. And that was an interesting matchup because Luka, obviously that was his first, I believe, playoff run. And Porzingis was not there for that, like he was injured. So he was basically carrying all the weight on his own. So I had mentioned that Porzingis is currently dealing with a minor injury. So hopefully if they have him in the playoffs, that's going to be interesting as far as how they perform against this team, because there might be a little bit of vengeance there as far as rehashing what happened last year. Luka can only get better, right? I mean, he's not missing any time, and he's already a skilled player, but he's adding to his game. So that's going to be an intriguing matchup to me that I would definitely want to watch, because I'm interested to see the performances of not only Luka, but on the Clippers side. How can they handle some of this pressure? If you're already looking at, you're looking like the team that definitely needs to win because of what happened last year, but you are also not the underdog because the Clippers would look more powerful than the Dallas Mavericks if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are both healthy and playing. Then, obviously they have to show improve and get past that round, but it might not be that easy. If Luka has some help and he's very determined to get going here, let's see, they're on a 3-game win streak right now, and that's how they went from, I don't know where they were at last time we talked, maybe 8th or 9th, and they're sitting in 6th right now, so they wouldn't be in that play-in tournament. So that's pretty interesting to see what's going on, that 3-game win streak with Porzingis missing 2, if not all 3 games of the last 3 games for them. So Luka's putting in work, everybody. Luka is definitely no joke. And that matchup, that series is not going to be a joke either. That series, I could see that going. Let's see. Last year they went 4-2 with the Clippers obviously winning. So that could definitely go another 6 games, if not 7 there in the first round. So that's going to be interesting. But not to dive too deep into that specifically. So let's go on to the next matchup, 2 versus 7. So we're looking at the Suns versus somebody. And I guess I should mention as well with 1 versus 8, which would be the Jazz versus somebody. So let me skip down to the play-in tournament. And like I said before, of how that works, 7 versus 8 will be playing each other, and whoever wins that will become the actual 7th seed. So in an instance, the 8th seed could become the 7th seed. So winner of that game is going to move on to block in the 7th game. So one of those teams needs to win. Technically, both of those teams need to win 1 game to make it in the playoffs. The first one to win is going to be number 7. The team to lose is going to play in the next round versus the winner of the 9 versus 10. So whoever wins 9 versus 10, their best position to get in would be 8th place, and they have to do that by winning, obviously, 2 consecutive games. So you're looking at the Golden State Warriors as of right now versus the San Antonio Spurs, with the San Antonio Spurs having home court advantage. Whoever wins that will play the loser of the 7 versus 8 and become the 8th spot, the 8th seed in the West. So just looking at what I would think as of right now, just based off what I would think would be the better team without going into too much detail or overthinking it. I mean, of course, things could happen or injuries could happen, but 7 versus 8, as of right now, I'll probably take the Portland Trailblazers in that matchup, putting the Grizzlies in the second round of that play-in tournament. So the Portland Trailblazers would remain at 7th if they were to win that matchup. And let's go down to the 9 versus 10, Spurs versus Golden State. I mean, if Steph Curry's healthy, he's playing like an MVP, which we're going to talk about in another podcast episode. I don't see why they couldn't take care of business there. They definitely have some playoff experience between Draymond and Steph Curry, no doubt about that. But I would guess that they would take that over. So now, if they want to make it to the 8th spot, they need to play the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, the Memphis Grizzlies, that would be interesting just from a storyline standpoint, because the Memphis Grizzlies had the chance to be in the 8th spot last year because they were in the playoff tournament against the Portland Trailblazers, and they obviously didn't make it. The Trailblazers took the 8th spot. So the Grizzlies would be in the same position once more of potentially getting bounced in the playoffs. And ultimately, if, like I said, Steph Curry's playing, and with the experience of Steph Curry and Draymond Green and the role players there, that might be too much to handle. But with these single game eliminations, anything can and probably will happen. So with that being said, will pick the Golden State Warriors here. So then the final seeding would be 7th place, Portland Trailblazers, 8th place, Golden State. So let's go back to the 2 versus 7 matchup potentially. The Phoenix Suns sitting at number 2 with home court advantage versus the Portland Trailblazers. Now this would be another interesting matchup because the Phoenix Suns, they are balling this year. Shout out to the Tavern Geek. What up, Micah? Big Phoenix Suns fan, and you should be. I mean, you should be proud of these guys. What they did with bringing Chris Paul in was a major key to how they're performing and what they need to do for the playoffs. So if they can sustain this level of excellence in the 7-game series, this might be a wrap. And I don't think it's going to come easy. You're playing the Portland Trailblazers. It's always Dame time, especially in the playoffs. Let's not forget, there's no such thing as a bad shot with that dude. He's deadly. So anytime he can catch fire, if he's having an off night down the stretch, fourth quarter, everybody check the clock. That's how he rolls. So, and with him having CJ back, and like I said, if Nurk's healthy, and then Enes Kanter being there this year with his rebounding skills, maybe could pick it up a little bit on defense. But if you can just use his offense to your advantage without sacrificing too much on defense, that's going to be tough. So, not to dive into too much detail, we definitely need Ayton to step up there to help get the Phoenix Suns out of the first round. And then last but not least, the other matchup in this first round of the West would be the Utah Jazz versus the Golden State Warriors. Now, normally I would probably stick with the Warriors, but I'm going to go with the Jazz temporarily. I didn't look up how long Donovan Mitchell is going to be out, but I'm going to assume that he's going to be back. So if Donovan Mitchell is back and he's playing at a sustainable amount of workload as far as health concerns, I would say the Jazz can win this game definitely in the 7-game series. But if they're without that guy, I think whoever's going to win is probably going to win in 6 games. Without Donovan, that's weird. I don't know if that makes sense because I said 7 games with Donovan Mitchell, but 6 without him, and it would almost sound like that I would still want the Golden State, would pick the Golden State Warriors, but I would think that in all actuality, maybe 6 games with Donovan Mitchell, the Utah Jazz will win, and then 7 games without him to win because Curry is just a slippery guy. He's hard to guard. And I don't know if they have the length and speed to do so. I mean, they're a great defensive team, but, on those switches, and you're going to need to outscore them on offense. So it's not just about playing defense on them, but yeah, if you can pressure Golden State to utilize somebody else for their scoring, then that would definitely be the key. And, yeah, obviously the Utah Jazz has a lot of depth to do so. They could put Royce O'Neal out there on the perimeter. He's a good perimeter defender. And then, yeah, without Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles is helping with the playmaking, and obviously Mike Conley. And then their bench is just crazy. So it would take a lot of minutes, a heavy load for Steph Curry to get past. And if I'm the Golden State Warriors, I don't know if I want Steph Curry to get too far into the playoffs because I don't want him to potentially get hurt and, just affect what's going to happen next season. But, yeah, I don't want to go into too much details because what I wanted to do was just freeze frame. And obviously, since I'm doing this solo tonight, I don't have anybody to really feed off of. So I do want to go over these matchups if they do happen to to be this way when it comes to the end of the regular season going into the playoffs, then that would be interesting. But things have changed. We did predictions earlier, about a month and a half ago, maybe a month ago, as far as where we thought teams were going to be sitting at the end of the regular season. So it's always interesting to go back and see how you were all kind of off, because things do change. But like I said, let's not leave out the Pelicans. They haven't been eliminated from the playoffs. The Sacramento Kings are right behind them, 1.5 games away from the Pelicans, but that puts them at 5.5 games away from the Golden State Warriors. And the way Curry's playing, I don't know. Don't think I could see them catching up. And obviously my team there, the Oklahoma City Thunder, we are, 10 games behind Golden State. So with 12 games to play, that's not happening. So, and then just to follow up, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Houston Rockets have already declared that they're going fishing because they are officially eliminated from the playoffs already. But the Minnesota Kings did come up with the big win the other night against Brooklyn. So shout out to Karl Anthony. Oh my gosh, the Oklahoma City Thunder is on a 13-game losing streak. What a record. That's worse in the league. But, I mean, what do you expect? We're kind of tanking. Not really tanking. We're rebuilding and trying to figure out lineups and personnel, and Shea's out, and I don't need to keep going on and on. But, yeah, that's just a wrap-up of what I wanted to discuss tonight. So, yeah, nothing more, nothing less, just pretty much diving into what I thought was an interesting concept of where I looked at the standings on Saturday night, and I was like, whoa, I need to talk about this because I would like to see these matchups as they stand right now, and I think it would make for a great first-round series in all of these matchups that I just mentioned. If it were to work out that way, I'd definitely be jumping on that because of I don't see anybody. I mean, anything can happen, but I don't see anybody in those rounds sweeping in 4 games. So all of them at least 5-game series, in my opinion. With health factored in. Just no doubt about that. So like I said, this pretty much wraps up what I wanted to talk about. Just to shout out again to our new subscribers. Shout out to Tavern Geek. Micah, shout out to Your Bud 36. Sometimes he's a special guest with us. Shout out to Cousin Fred because we have a new concept we're wanting to debut. As well as following up with the KISH What If that I did with Micah from Tavern Geek. Hey, Micah, we need to do another one of those because I think that was pretty cool. What we did with the Karl Anthony Towns, what if he went to the Warriors basically via trade this offseason. So if you haven't seen that video, check that video out in our lineup there with the what if. Look for that KISH What If. Cousin Fred came up with the concept of basically taking over teams and basically what would you do in that aspect. So we're calling that PTO, personal team. Nope. I messed that up. Personal takeover. So that's what that stands for. So look out for one of those videos. Hopefully we can shoot that towards the end of the week and post that up there for you. Not sure what team we're going to do first, but I think it's kind of cool and it's going to obviously add another dynamic to our channel. So once again, thank you everybody for kicking in the second half. KISH YZ. Find our audio only version of this podcast on Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, and I think there's a few others that I'm not mentioning. We're not available everywhere quite yet, but hopefully we'll get there. And obviously follow us on Twitter and Instagram under KISHYZ, KISH_YZ. And obviously, if you're listening to the audio only, check out our YouTube page, KISHYZ, KISH space YZ. And, look at our videos there. Look at our shoes videos. I did a few of those this past week. Obviously, check out the recording of our podcast and then our PPFs where we do player breakdowns of the past, present, and future of each individual player that we cover. And then we have a few debates on there as well. And, if you like this video, give us a like. And definitely, if you haven't subbed, please give us a subscribe. And like I said, for this month, it's Limb Loss Awareness Month. So for every subscriber we have at the end of the month, I'm donating $1 to the Limbs for Life foundation. That's at limbsforlife.org, and I will be doing that May 1st. So help support our channel and support that organization. Thank you everybody for kicking in the second half. This has been KISH YZ. I'm D, and I'm out. Peace and love, everybody.